Hey animators, Eric here at Mile High Animation. I'm here to walk you through the fundamentals of animation using Procreate Dreams. Now, a little bit about me. I am a college professor of animation at Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design here in Denver, Colorado. I also own an animation studio here called Mile High Animation, where we do motion design and animation, typically out of After Effects. And then I also teach 9 to 17-year-olds how to animate. So, we're going to be walking through bouncing ball, pendulum swing, and all of these type of fundamentals that we learned in animation all the way through to character animation. And we're going to be using Procreate Dreams to do all of this. This would be a step-by-step kind of course that we would teach on a college level. So if you follow along, not only are you going to learn Procreate Dreams, but we're also going to learn animation and all of the fundamentals in the process. So by the end of all of the videos that I can put together, hopefully you feel confident and ready to get out there and create. All right, let's get to it. All right, so the first thing I want to do is on the top right, hit this little plus, and this is how we're going to create our new project. Now within here, you have some different variations of what kind of canvas you want. I'm going to stick to widescreen. That's pretty typical for me. You've got your different resolutions. I'm going to stick to 4K. And then up here in the top right, you have duration, frames per second. I'm just going to leave that as well. I'm going to hit draw. Now, one thing I want to talk about before we jump into it is organization. And so the first thing I'm going to do is hit select, choose Dream 1, and I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm going to name this folder Fundamentals. Just so I know that all of the work that I'm going to do will live inside here. And then that way you can organize all kinds of different projects outside of this. All right, so I'm going to hop in there. I'm going to hold down, rename this, and we're going to call it Bouncing Ball. And this will be the first lesson that we get into. All right, so here's our canvas. Here's our timeline at the bottom. All video and animation, it's all moving pictures. And with that, you have a timeline. So our timeline was set to 4 seconds. I'm just going to zoom out here all the way. You can see it kind of ends here at 4. But really, it'll play back to whatever you zoom into. So if I make a video or if I'm like working and I have my timeline set here to about a second and let's see, maybe like 6 frames or something, that's how far it'll play. So down here's our timeline. Up on the top, that's our drawing space. And then here on the right, you've got this little menu where you can either go into your drawing mode, your editing mode. Here you can do like recordings of your animation, and then you can play. And then you have the plus here to adjust and add layers. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is go into our drawing mode. And we're going to take this little middle bar, and we're going to bring it all the way down to get into our flipbook mode. In a flipbook, I'm going to put this either on the top left or the top right, depending on how you might be handed. I'm still experimenting with this. It's a new app, so I'm going to be putting this in my top left. And then we're going to get into our bouncing ball. So with the flipbook, this is kind of like pages of traditional animation, where you can just kind of flip through drawings. And so that's how that functions. On the top right, you've got your brushes, you've got your smudging, your eraser, and then you have your drawing layers. So real important to the bouncing ball, as we're learning, we're going to first start off with a guide layer. What that's going to look like, we're going to rename this to guide. And, I just like to stay organized with all of these different types of things. First thing I'm going to do, create a little ground plane for myself, because our ball is going to make an impact with something. So it's good to have that in there. Next thing I'm going to do is draw my ball. And keep in mind, this is a drawing course. So everything we're going to do is hand drawn. We're not going to be using any kind of tools outside of Procreate Dreams to make circles or anything like that. So it's good to practice drawing. And circles are a fundamental shape that we use in everything. All right, so I have my circle. Now the next thing I want to do is just draw some straight lines heading down. This will help guide my ball as it works its way down. So this is my first keyframe. Next, I want to do my next keyframe, which is a squash. So it may be something like this. I like a flat bottom. Sometimes people will draw kind of a squash like this, where in the middle you have the curvature on the side. But for me, I like that impact. That gives the kind of that flatness at the bottom of the circle. And then, so you have your keyframe here, you have a keyframe here, and then now we're going to put in our breakdown. So the breakdown is kind of what connects the keyframes together. And all of this organization is just going to help me kind of put this all together. So the ball's going to come down here. It's going to have a little bit of hang time. Then it's going to come down quick. Then it's going to have impact. So here's my breakdown. And here's the top of my keyframe. So this is going to be going both up and down here, this way. Up here, we're going to have hang time, and then it's going to impact at the bottom. All right, so that's my guide layer. I'm going to make a new layer on top of that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to back out of this. Delete that, and I'm going to create a new track. So a new track is just a new layer to do our video. And what I'm going to do is just drag this guide out. Let's just get it out to like a second. Okay. Now I want this guide to be here, but I don't want to see it so dark. So I want to lower the opacity down a little bit here so that I can just kind of draw over it. And this is going to really help give you a good result in that ball bounce. And so now I'm going to select the top track here. And I'm going to go back into my drawing mode. Throw my flip book up here. And now we're going to get into our animation. So my flip book will be clear because I'm on the track above my guide. All right. So now this is a matter of just drawing over this circle. The brush that I have is just a Procreate pencil. I'm not yet a brush snob, but eventually I'll really find the brushes that I love in this app. What we want to do is flip to our next page, our next frame, cell, however you want to phrase that, and draw this breakdown pose. And then now we can draw this here. This is our second keyframe with our ball making impact like this. Okay, so we have 3 drawings, breakdown. We have keyframe. We have 2 keyframes. So the top of the animation of this ball bounce is a keyframe. Then it has a breakdown pose that links up the top to the bottom where it's making the impact. Then it finally hits. Now we're going to work our way back up. So we're focusing on these main drawings, the key drawings, and then the breakdown. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to trace over this one more time. Okay, so now I can use my finger and just kind of flip through, and I can see my animation as if I'm flipping through my pages traditionally. Awesome. All right, now we're going to just get into in-betweening. I'm trying to keep this really simple and straightforward. I'm not trying to give a whole overview of the app. We're going to be exploring it together as we work. This whole thing is a little bit more basic than you think, and software isn't what's going to save you. The important thing is that you feel comfortable within this app, and the beauty of it is you can take this anywhere, animate anywhere, and that's pretty impressive. So the way in-betweens work, you have your keyframe and then you have your breakdown. Now, on the top of the ball bounce is where I want to have some hang time, and it's going to slow into this breakdown pose. Impact, come back up. It's going to impact, come back up, and then ease again to have more hang time. So let me walk you through that. We're going to come up to our flip book here, hit a plus, and then at the bottom left here, we're going to go to our onion skin. So the yellow frames that we see are kind of like the future frames, where we're going. And the purple is where we were. So there's where we were, there's the breakdown where we're going, and we're drawing an in-between. So what you really want to do when you're doing these in-betweens is kind of find the middle state in between the two drawings. So here's the top of this circle, top of this circle. I'm just going to kind of place a middle section for that. And I'm going to use that as my point to knock out this in between. Now, it's important to try and keep this circle consistent. And the reason why I made this guide is so that as the ball falls, it has kind of that straight trajectory that you're looking for. All right, so that looks pretty consistent to me. I'm just going to clean up my lines. Oh, that eraser is big. All right, now I'm just going to clean this guy up a little bit. All right, so that's my first in between. Boom. See how it's going from that top into my breakdown? Now I'm going to work my way back. So you've got you've got your keyframe, and then you have your in between, and then you have your breakdown. I'm working my way back towards this keyframe, in between from the previous in between to my keyframe. See how I'm working my way backwards? So now I'm going to just use this kind of like similar guide here. Find the little middle point. There it is. Now I'm going to also draw a line here, find a middle point. There's that. So I'm finding the middle point between the two tops of the circles and the two bottoms. That's going to help me create some consistency, and I know my circle is going to touch this left here. So it's a little technical, but I think it'll really help keep consistency as I do this practice. Okay. So now you can see, let me just clean up this in between a little bit. Thank you, guides. Your work is done. Okay. So now you can see that hang time building as we have more drawings. The more drawings you have in a region, the slower your animations can feel within that time frame. So I think I'd like to do one more in between. So again, I'm working back from the last in between that I did to the keyframe. Now here I don't really need that guide. I can just kind of eyeball. Here's my middle point. Here's my middle point. And I know it's going to touch the walls here in my guide. Wasn't really a great selection or a spot there for. Okay, so here we go. All right. So now we've got some hang time going on there. Then it's going to get fast. Boom, impact. And now we're going to work our way back up to this keyframe. So from the breakdown to the keyframe is where our in-between is going to come. All right. And because our in-between or our onion skin here is showing, looks like 4 frames back, I can actually see where I put my last like main in-between here. So I'm just going to draw over that. Now I could go back and copy and paste everything I did, but I like to just draw. So here I'm going to just freehand these a little bit more, these in-betweens. I'm not going to use my guides. Or I'm not going to create guides, like trying to connect the top of the circle to the bottom of the circle. All right, now I'm just going to keep hammering away. I'm going to keep it pretty loose. I'm not trying to make it anything perfect here. All right, and let's see. I think I might be pretty happy with that. Now, there's two trains of thought here. As this loops, I've got two of the same drawings. I've got this one, and I've got this key on top. Now, if we're animating on twos, you want each of these drawings to only last one frame because it's going to loop back. It's going to begin with the top, and then it's going to go back to the other drawing at the very end and hit that twice. So technically, it's going to hit 2 frames there. But I think the easiest way to go about this here is just delete this frame now. And then I'll go back to my timeline. And we'll just time it out here. So you can see your ball bounce happening. Let's just give it a preview. Now we're at 24 frames and we've got, let's see, each of these only lasting 1 frame. So it's going to go by pretty quick. Now, some people might think, oh, well, I'll put it on 12 frames per second. But to me, that's incorrect way of thinking when you're doing traditional animation. Everything needs to be, animating on 2s or 4s or like that kind of thing. So I'm going to just drag out these frames. So one quick tip, usually when you hold an end like this, you can drag it out. But if you hold an end in the middle here, it won't push that other one out unless you put your other finger on the timeline anywhere else on the screen and push. So you just need 2 fingers on the screen. So you hold here, put your other finger on, and then push. There you go. It's like magic. To me, this is one of the most important features. It's not obvious, but once you figure it out, it's integral to the way that you kind of do your timing and space these things out. Okay, so now you can see our animation has gone all the way out to, looks like around 20 frames. Whoops. Accidentally went through an undo cycle there. Sometimes when you put 2 fingers on the screen, it'll start to undo stuff. All right, so there's my bouncing ball. Looks pretty decent. Awesome. So that's the basic premise of it. It's working through keyframes. So you've got this keyframe of the ball on top. Then I established, the bottom keyframe where it's making impact. And then I established the breakdown pose here. Then I eased into, or I'm easing out of this keyframe down and then easing back in here. Make sense? Awesome. Now let's go ahead and move forward and get out of this. We successfully did our bouncing ball. Now we're going to create a new movie. We get out of here and rename it. And I'm going to call it Pendulum Swing, or just Pendulum. All right. So I'm going to get in my drawing mode, get back into my flipbook, and we're going to make a guide. So the best way that I know to do the pendulum swing, start with an anchor point. This is going to be where the string is sort of swinging. I'll draw a line out here. Draw a line out here. Little triangle going. Just so it feels a little bit symmetrical. Feels a little bit off from what I'm seeing. And the whole point of making these guides is so that you can really nail down, what the animation might look like prior to just committing to it. So that's feeling a little bit more even in my eyes. But the trick of the pendulum swing is you want to have an animation arc. And the string here is really going to arc down. If it stayed flat, I feel like the string is growing. Okay, so that's feeling, maybe it needs a little bit more volume here on the left. That might be a little bit, there we go. That looks pretty good. Now, two ways I've done this before. You can kind of attach the ball like this. This is kind of the method that I prefer. And just run that line down the middle so that we can really get attached to the volumes and making sure that you've got some symmetry built into that circle so that as it's swinging, it's feeling like it's the same attached ball on there. So I'm just going to run this line a little bit past, just like I did before on the other one. And really try and draw these circles to be similar to the other ones that I have. This one's feeling a little bit too big. Let's see here. Okay. And we can always kind of adjust the size of those things as we get into our animation, because right now this is just our guide layer. So we'll get out of here, create a new layer, create a new track, come down here, oops, go to filter, change our opacity. I'm going to drop that down. Go back up to my empty track, and we'll go back into flipbook mode. Okay, so we're not drawing on the guide. Now we have empty cells to draw on. First thing I'm going to do, establish that anchor point. I'm going to draw a straight line. Now, unlike Procreate, we can't use the software to draw straight lines. We actually have to draw. So I'm doing my best here. All right, so I'm just going to try and nail down the circle. Okay, that's my first key. Next, so I'm not seeing my guide. So what I want to do is get back out of here and just drag that guide out like this. Oops. And back into my flipbook. I really like drawing in flipbook mode. It feels like the best to me, especially when you're drawing your keyframes. There's no reason to see your timeline while you're drawing. Alrighty, so I just really want to establish these shapes to make them feel solid using my guide. All right, so let's flip back and left to right, left to right. Sure, it feels pretty good to me. I don't want to overcomplicate things about volumes and sizing and all of that stuff. Okay, so you have your two keyframes, all the way left, all the way right, and our breakdown is going to be in the middle. So just to remind you, the breakdown pose is what's linking up two keyframes. It's telling me how am I going to get from A to B. And that's going to be really important later on when we're working with characters. All right, there's your pendulum. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, now, just like in the bouncing ball, we're going to work our way back from the breakdown to the keyframe. So I'm going to establish my anchor point here. Now I'm going to, in between, I'm going to half the spacing here. And I'm going to just create some guides for myself so I can really stay on this arc. And don't forget, you can just always erase this stuff. So it's really important to build these guides so you're not losing your mind trying to um, keep all of these things looking consistent. Okay, so good enough for me. Okay, now when we're doing these in-betweens, remember now we worked our way from the breakdown to that key pose. We did this in between. Now we're going to work our way back towards the key pose. So I'm going to turn on my onion skin because I really want to see that now. I'm going to place my anchor point and I'm going to half this down. Like so. And so here I might use kind of a little guide here. It's like this might be my middle point. I think it's, maybe I'll just kind of eyeball this. Pretty good in terms of volume. Running that line down the middle really helps because you can kind of compare this volume to this volume, and you can kind of use that as the frame of reference too when you're building out your in-betweens. All right, so there we go. And we'll do one more. Establish my anchor point. Draw this down the middle. And it'll start to get easier the closer we get these circles together. I'm not happy with this circle. It feels a little bit skinny. So it kind of come out a little bit on the left there. Just needs to kind of round itself out. There, that feels a bit better. Okay. And you can keep going. If you want to get this really smooth and coming to a dead stop, you can just drill this down a little bit more. Like so. Get this really centered in there. Same over here. Kind of becomes a little bit mathematical at that point. But I'll be honest with you, I don't really listen to music while I work, just so I can stay focused and have that inner dialogue of what I'm doing. Okay, so we worked from our breakdown to the key pose and did our in-betweens. That's gonna slow in there and slow out as it loops back and forth. Now, same as the other side, hit my plus, find this middle point, first of all, establish my anchor, drive this down the middle, and kind of just follow this arc a little bit. A little bit of an arc in here, just so I can really see the path of my ball. And then now it's just a matter of trying to match the volumes of the circles as close as you can. I think most importantly is that you're understanding the technical aspects of what we're doing. If your circles aren't looking perfectly the same as you're animating, make them as similar as you can, but also don't fixate on it. Just move forward and know that you're going to get better as you continue to draw and draw and draw. Okay, throw a line down the middle here. That, and just try and keep those volumes similar. Okay, there we go. Gonna do one more. I think I've got two more to go if I'm gonna match the same as the other side. So I'm gonna land this down the middle. And I'm gonna change this onion skin setting a little bit. I really just want maybe one frame so it doesn't feel too confusing as I'm animating here. Okay, I'm gonna find the in-between spot. These circles, maybe over here somewhere. Okay. Pretty therapeutic doing in-betweens. I think once you establish quality breakdowns and key poses, I mean, in-betweens aren't easy, but it's nice to kind of be able to tune out a little bit and just do the hard work, and then you get results. I guess it's not like the hard work. It's just it's it's like having longevity within your ability to continuously animate and feeling comfortable and confident that you can just tackle whatever's in front of you and enjoy it. Um, because once you're done, you get a nice result. Okay, so let us take a look. It's looking pretty good to me. Okay, let's go back to the timeline. Okay, so we have our drawings here. I'm gonna turn off this guide. So there's my pendulum swing. Now, on this one, I might consider actually copying and pasting. So what I'll do is just copy, paste, copy, paste. Now you have to keep track of where you are with everything. So we're working our way back. So we were here. Now we need this one. So that was 8. Now we need 7. I'm gonna grab 6, 5. Sorry, 5. Come here, 5, 4, 3, and then 2 and 1. Okay, I don't think we necessarily need 1 because it's going to hit that pose and then loop. All right, so now we just go through and extend these. And remember, grab the side, put your other finger on the screen so that you can push. I really love traditional animation because you're just bringing drawings to life. And there's no, I could do this on paper if I wanted to. The beauty of this is that the iPad is really a great tool, and you can, it's really starting to blend professionalism with just being able to work so um, effectively on a small device like an iPad. I have an iPad Pro here, and not having my big Cintiq and a desktop and all of that just to get the ability to draw is just incredible. All right, so let's just watch this. Play it again. Okay, so there's my pendulum. Now you can see I didn't erase all my guides. You can see I'm pretty tight on that anchor point. There's a little bit of jumping there. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this. It's got a nice clear arc. the volumes are speaking to me, and the easing feels pretty good. So there you have it. We've done the bouncing ball. What did we do here? We established what are keyframes, your breakdown, how to do in-betweens, and how to leverage guides. Next, we jumped into the pendulum. We did a little bit more technical work in the timeline, a lot of copying and pasting. We did our guides as well here. We did our key poses, our breakdown, our in-betweens, and really have a great result here. All right, so I'm going to stop it there. So here in our fundamentals folder, we've got our pendulum and our bouncing ball. Next, we're going to be exploring a couple of different other things. And I'm just excited to share more about that with you. All right, hey animators, welcome back. We jumped into Procreate Dreams. We did our bouncing ball, we did our pendulum swing, we talked about keyframes, breakdowns, in-betweens, how all of those function, how to do the in-between, and we're just going to keep driving forward using Procreate Dreams, establishing the fundamentals of animation, exploring the principles of animation, and next step we're going to be getting into some more advanced tests, and then later down the line getting into character animation. So thanks again, Eric here at Mile High Animation, and I look forward to working with you in the future.